So you're running workloads on Google Cloud. That's great. You're building on some of the most secure infrastructure on the entire planet. But security is a partnership. It's a shared responsibility. So the real question is, how do you do your part to protect your apps and your data? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break down the essential layers of security you really need to master on Google Cloud Platform.
We'll kick things off with the big idea, the philosophy that really drives Google's security. Then we'll build up our defenses layer by layer, covering identity, the network, and, of course, data protection. After that, we'll see how to keep a watchful eye on everything with monitoring, and then we'll wrap it all up with the key takeaways. The whole journey is basically a crash course in a powerful strategy called Defense in Depth.
All right, first up, to really get GCP security, you've got to understand there's been a fundamental shift in how we think about protecting our systems. The old ways, they just don't cut it anymore.
For decades, security was basically like a castle with a big moat around it. If you were inside the network walls, you were trusted. Simple. But that model just completely falls apart when threats can come from anywhere, even from inside your own network. So Google helped pioneer a new model, Zero Trust. The core idea is simple, but it is so powerful. Assume your network is hostile, trust nothing by default, and verify every single request, no matter where it's coming from.
Okay, so how do you actually do Zero Trust? You do it with a strategy called Defense in Depth. Look, this isn't about building one single magical wall. It's about creating multiple, overlapping layers of security. We're going to see how architectural choices, policy enforcement, and active monitoring all work together to create an environment that's truly tough to crack.
So let's start with what is, without a doubt, the most important layer. In a Zero Trust world, the new perimeter isn't a network firewall, it's identity. Everything, and I mean everything, comes down to answering two simple but absolutely critical questions. Who are you, and what are you allowed to do?
And the tool for the job is Identity and Access Management, or IAM. Think of it as the central nervous system for every single permission in GCP. Getting IAM right is absolutely critical, because just one tiny misconfiguration can be the open door an attacker is just waiting to find. It is by far one of the most common vulnerabilities you'll find in any cloud environment. So how does it all work? Well, it's kind of like a three-step dance. First, you authenticate. You prove you are who you say you are, hopefully using multi-factor authentication. Second, you authorize. The system checks its list to see what permissions your identity actually has. And third, GCP enforces the decision. But, and this is the really cool part, it adds a modern twist, context. It can check if you're on a company-managed device or if you're in the right country before it lets you in.
So what are the golden rules here? First, always enforce the principle of least privilege. That means you grant the absolute minimum permissions needed for a job, and not one bit more. Use custom roles instead of those broad default ones. And please, just enable MFA everywhere. And for your applications and your VMs, a tool like Identity Aware Proxy, or IAP, is a total game changer. It basically wraps your apps in a layer of Google's own identity verification, so you can grant access to specific users without ever putting them on the public internet, or making them use a clunky VPN.
Okay, so we've locked down our identities. Now, let's talk about the network. See, even in a Zero Trust model, controlling the pathways for data is still incredibly important. But we're going to build our walls in a much smarter way.
And the key tool here is VPC service controls. Now, this is not your traditional network firewall. Instead of trying to build a wall around your servers, this lets you draw a secure virtual perimeter around the Google services themselves. It's designed specifically to stop one of the biggest cloud security nightmares out there, data exfiltration. And this diagram here gives you a little peek under the hood at what's going on. See how Service A wants to talk to Service B? Even though they're both inside Google's infrastructure, there's no free pass. The infrastructure itself encrypts the communication and checks the access rules. In this case, the policy says only A service is allowed to access B service, so the call is allowed to go through. That right there is Zero Trust in action, and it's enforced automatically at the very foundation of the cloud.
So, what does this actually mean for you? Well, imagine you have really sensitive customer data sitting in BigQuery. You can place it inside a service perimeter. Now, even if an attacker somehow gets a hold of a user's credentials, they are completely blocked from copying that data out to some unauthorized place. You can isolate your machine learning projects in Vertex AI, or you can lock down your cloud storage buckets so they can only be reached from inside your own secure network. It's incredibly powerful stuff.
Okay, we've covered who can get in and what pathways they can use. Now, let's get to the heart of it all, the data. Because at the end of the day, protecting these crown jewels is the ultimate goal, right?
This right here is one of the most important things to know about GCP, period. By default, your data is always encrypted. It doesn't matter if it's flying across the network or just sitting on a disk, Google handles the encryption for you. That is a massive security win, right out of the box.
But on top of that amazing default security, you've got a whole toolkit for even more granular control. Cloud Data Loss Prevention, or DLP, can automatically scan all your data to find and classify sensitive info that you might not even know you have. And for the ultimate level of control, you can use Customer-Managed Encryption Keys, or CMEK, with the Cloud Key Management Service. This means you control the cryptographic keys used to lock up your data, giving you the final say over who can access it.
All right, our defenses are in place. But security isn't some set-it-and-forget-it task. The final, critical layer is a constant, watchful eye. We need to be able to detect threats, investigate them, and respond all in real time.
And why is this so critical? Because these right here, these are the real-world mistakes that lead to breaches every single day. Overly permissive IAM roles, storage buckets accidentally left open to the public, old unpatched software. Without active monitoring, you simply won't see an attacker poking around until it's way, way too late.
So, with all your resources spread out across dozens of projects and services, how in the world do you keep track of it all? You need a central command center. You need a single pane of glass for your entire security posture.
And that single pane of glass is Security Command Center. It acts as the central hub, pulling in security signals from across your entire GCP organization. It gathers up all the threats, vulnerabilities, and misconfigurations and puts them all in one place so you can actually make sense of them. It gives you that unified visibility you need to understand your risks and take action before a small issue becomes a massive breach.
We have covered a lot of ground, from high-level philosophy all the way down to specific tools. So let's bring it all together and go over the core principles one more time for building a secure foundation on GCP.
Okay, here it is, your security checklist. 1. Adopt a zero-trust mindset. Trust nothing, verify everything. 2. Live by the principle of least privilege in IAM. 3. Use VPC service controls to stop data from ever leaving your secure perimeter. 4. Take advantage of GCP's default encryption and use tools like Cloud DLP so you actually know what you're protecting. 5. Centralize all your monitoring with Security Command Center. And finally, number 6, remember that security is not a one-time project. It's a continuous process of review and improvement.
So I'll leave you with one last question to think about for your own cloud environment. Is it built on the old, fragile model of implied trust, or is it built on the modern, resilient foundation of explicit verification? Because honestly, the answer to that question could make all the difference. Thanks for watching.